seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.
A note to listeners: the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences.
Is because there's patterns with certain bloodlines. So there's like 14 families from the Mayflower that seem to be connected to the majority of the serial killers in the United States. And in those bloodlines, there's certain patterns that we're seeing emerge that are consistent with a cluster of serial killers, like let's say the Jeffrey Dahmers, who are only murdering people through and using cannibalism as something, and then the ones that are predators and stalkers. And it's very interesting, and it could change the way that research is done on serial killers in the future.
And there's patterns, very noticeable patterns in their trees amongst especially the Mayflower killers. 100% of the modern day serial killers that descend from the Mayflower have that same exact pattern, where it's a recent Europe ancestor. They've got the German or Scandinavian. They've got a connection to New York/New Jersey, like that area right there. They've all got Massachusetts. So there's this very interesting pattern that is evident right away off the hop in all of their trees.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. Hi, everyone. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts, even if it's one word.
And please subscribe to our website, www.partnersintruecrime. Follow us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram to check out our weekly promos. We're also now on YouTube at Partners in True Crime. If you subscribe to our website, you'll be getting weekly emails from us and all kinds of promotions and things that we don't advertise on the podcast.
We appreciate all the great reviews, so please keep them coming as well. Just go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, drop us a review, subscribe, and tell your friends about what we're doing. Also, feel free to take pieces of the podcast, share with others. Our goal is to get the word out to as many people as possible, so thank you. Also, we are currently looking into the case of another young victim in Oklahoma, which seems very suspicious. 8 months ago, on September 4th, Noah Presgrove was 19 years old when he was found dead on a highway near Terrell, Oklahoma.
His family is still looking for answers to find out what happened in Noah's horrible death, and we are talking to them. In the coming weeks, we will be launching the What Happened to Noah Presgrove podcast, where we will go through the facts of the case with the family and try to help them find some answers. Check out announcements on Partners in True Crime for further information.
What if I told you that some of the world's most notorious killers may actually be related to one another?
Cindy BERTRAND FLORES is a genetic genealogist who has been helping people connect with family members across the globe. Cindy has built thousands of family trees to trace people's ancestry.
When a friend asked Cindy to start looking into serial killers to see if there were any killers who were on the same family tree, Cindy found some shocking connections.
According to Cindy's research, Lawrence BITTAKER, Roy Norris, Ted Bundy, Charles Manson, the CANDYMAN, BTK, the NIGHTSTALKER, Jack the Ripper, H.H. Holmes, are just a few who could possibly share the same family trees. What? Rob and I could not believe what she was showing us the first time that she showed it to us, so we had to do some digging ourselves. And we saw that there were many, many connections between these serial killers that traced back for centuries. And it was quite shocking. Rob and I could not believe what Cindy showed us.
Is it possible that these killers are connected by some twisted DNA? Or is it just a coincidence? And can this research change the way we study the patterns of serial killers?
As Cindy began to build out the trees, she was able to trace the majority of the killers to several families who traveled to the U.S. on the Mayflower. What?
Most people think that everyone in the United States is related to one another, and that all of our ancestors were on the Mayflower.
But that, we've learned, is actually not true. Only a small percentage of the population are actually descendants of the Mayflower, myself included. My ancestor was Stephen Hopkins.
But I'm not related to anyone on the Mayflower. Thank God, or I would be married to my cousin.
Exactly. Thank God. That's all we need. So today, Cindy's going to join us with Laura because she looked into Laura's family tree and she has some shocking information about Laura and the serial killers that she works with and us that you won't believe. I still can't believe it. It's crazy.
Let's hear what Cindy has to say. And if you want to hear more about Cindy's incredible research, we'll be launching her podcast, Deadly Roots, in the next few weeks. All right, so we have Cindy Bertrand Flores and we have Laura Brand. A lot of L's, Laura's going on here on Partners in True Crime. But we wanted to get you two together. Just a full disclosure, with Cindy, we're actually going to be launching a new podcast with her. She does some amazing genealogy work on serial killers and pretty much everybody, but she's figured out this whole way of connecting all of the U.S.'s serial killers that go all the way back to London and England and the Mayflower and crazy stuff. So we wanted to connect both of these women because Laura's doing so much work with serial killers right now, and she's she's the Parthenon of serial killers that she's working with right now, over 50 to 60. And so we wanted to see how these two would mix it up and find out and exchange information. So thanks, ladies, for being on. And Cindy, what do you think about this?
I think it's incredible. I mean, Cindy has been able to link all of the most notorious serial killers in the United States to each other. Yeah. I mean, they're connected. And we're finding patterns, which I think is really interesting, which is why we wanted to talk to Laura today, is because there's patterns with certain bloodlines. So there's like 14 families from the Mayflower that seem to be connected to the majority of the serial killers in the United States. And in those bloodlines, there's certain patterns that we're seeing emerge that are consistent with a cluster of serial killers, like let's say the Jeffrey Dahmers, who are only murdering people through and using cannibalism as something, and then the ones that are predators and stalkers. And it's very interesting, and it could change the way that research is done on serial killers in the future, which is why we're so excited about Cindy's show.
And then also, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that there also is a connection from the serial killers to their victims as well.
There is. I found one. I found one connection.
Yeah, which has always been a question for me, because I think one of the scariest things about these serial killers is the randomness of the victims. And for women, I know we all listen to true crime and we all want to know how do we protect ourselves from getting murdered. But we've noticed that a lot of these killers have connections to some of these victims, which is what I was always fascinated with, because why is someone randomly picking a girl off the street? Does the DNA recognize this person? Right. Are you having genetic memory? Is there some kind of trauma memory that is going on with your DNA? I mean, the more we learn about generational trauma, the more we're understanding that DNA attracts DNA. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of interesting themes going on here.
Yeah. So Cindy, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do and how you kind of came across this connection?
Sure. I'm a genetic genealogist as my profession. So I solve DNA mysteries that I use people's DNA to isolate and find their biological families, people that are adopted, don't know who their fathers are, etc. I had helped a friend of mine. I did her genetic genealogy, and as at it, I built her family tree. And then she was very much into serial killers. That's her thing. She's like obsessed with Charles Manson and stuff. So I was like, as a quirky Halloween gift, I was like, let's see if she's related to any serial killers. So that's how the tree got started initially. The first 5, I was like, okay, great, you're related to Charles Manson. Let's see if you're related to Jeffrey Dahmer. And,
well, wait, that's interesting, because she was obsessing over Charles Manson, and then you found out that she was related to him.
She was related to him, right. As well
see,
as
that's what I'm saying. Like, this attraction to certain things. Like, yeah. I didn't want to know anything about Charles Manson personally. Like, right. I mean, it's interesting how this, like, why you attracted to certain things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so go on.
So there generally people have like a pattern to their trees as well. So people that have a lot of serial killers in their tree might have inherited some interest in that, or people with a lot of doctors at the end of the line tend to be nurses, caregivers, doctors. So as a quirky gift, I decided, okay, let's check this out, and I did, and she was. And so the first 5 trees that I had started to build out for these killers, I was building all these trees individually, which was I didn't really think it was going to become this. And I noticed the surname Fuller a lot, like in all of the first 5 at least. I said,
what is your surname Fuller? is one of the families that was on the Mayflower that
right,
came over
the
from
Mayflower
England.
connection.
And I think it was one of the largest families that came over.
2 brothers came over. The first couple died. So there was Samuel and Edward. Edward and his wife died that winter, and they had one son who was young, who ended up staying with his uncle at that point. So his uncle, Dr. Samuel Fuller, took care of him. So I'd have to look at how many children Samuel had, but it's not just that they came over. They had some nieces and nephews that came over, not on the Mayflower, at a later time. So there are other lines that connect to their grandfather, and that's why the Fuller line is hefty. There's 12 serial killers that descend from the Fuller line, of which there is a very seriously noticeable pattern. And that's what caught my interest. I was like, what is up with all these Fullers? And then I started, like, let's see how many other people descend from this Fuller guy. Is this a thing? Is that like a requirement to be a serial killer, that you descend from this guy? And over, I mean, I'm just finding Fuller in the tree all the time. And I was like, so now the tree's very large. We're at probably 70 serial killers. Not everybody's tree is completely finished in it, but a lot of them are. And there's patterns, very noticeable patterns in their trees amongst especially the Mayflower killers. 100% of the modern day serial killers that descend from the Mayflower have that same exact pattern, where it's a recent Europe ancestor. They've got the German or Scandinavian. They've got a connection to New York / New Jersey, like that area right there. They've all got Massachusetts. So there's this very interesting pattern that is evident right away off the hop in all of their trees.
One of the misconceptions that we've come across with this is that a lot of people think that we're all related to the people on the Mayflower, which is not true. I mean, my father didn't come over to this country until 1947. So
neither did mine.
And so I think that it's a misconception that everybody believes that the entire American population is related to the Mayflower.
Right.
And
if you do sorry, go ahead.
I mean, Kim, what do you think about that? Have you come across that too? If people have said that to you?
To me, yeah, of course, all the time. And it said, if you look it up on Yahoo or Google, it'll say 30 million. That figure was based on if one Mayflower person married a non-Mayflower person and had 2 kids. So it was a guesstimate. It is an incorrect estimate because they don't take pedigree collapse into consideration, where your tree folds in on itself, because groups of people who were in an area got married, had children, those children ended up getting married. So that makes your tree fold in on itself instead of going straight out like this: 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 and then continuing to grow. So because of that, our 30 million, which would be 9% of the population, realistically is probably closer to 3 million people, which is 0.9% of the population descend from the Mayflower, if you take pedigree collapse into consideration. Of the serial killers in the tree, 38% of them descend from the Mayflower.
That's a large number.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
It's almost half.
What do you think of that, Laura?
It's so fascinating. I can't even believe it's only about, what'd you say, 3 million for the Mayflower?
Yeah.
And then 38% are serial killers.
38% of the population of the serial killers, and then 0.9% of the population. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like almost half.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's because there could be more. I have, there's a lot of serial killers that are like adopted, things like that, whose trees I cannot get without DNA. I cannot go further on those, but it's likely, the likelihood of the large number being larger is quite a lot. So.
And that's just the serial killers that we know.
Right.
I mean, the ones that the FBI has said that there's probably close to 200 to 300 active serial killers roaming in the U.S. right now.
Mm-hmm. And I think this would be an easy way to identify, if you had suspects, to rule out or identify which one is the one that you really should be focusing on.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, with genetic DNA testing, Laura, we've noticed, I mean, just with the Green River Killer, one of the victims that we were looking for 10 years ago when we were doing that show, finally was identified over Christmas through genetic DNA. And I think genetic DNA has become a superpower in solving some of these cases. Laura, what do you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I wanted to ask, because psychopaths they show a warrior gene. When you're looking at, their family trees, did you also go into like the genetic component that way, if there's any warrior gene or a common gene that they're all sharing?
I heard about that because I had a TikTok blow up and had a lot of comments, people talking about this warrior gene. So I've heard about it. And I believe that's only carried on the mother's line, basically maternal mom. And that's not the case. A lot of these killers, it's on their mother's side. Some is on the father's side. But it doesn't just straight on the mother's line. It weaves in and out through mom's, dad's, dad, to that their connection is. So there is the warrior gene, which could be considered in this, but I think it's more like the traumas passed on. I mean, forget the warrior gene. It's definitely in your DNA. And there are only a handful of ancestors that have like heaping amounts of serial killers that descend from them. So, and there were thousands of people that came over. The Mayflower was only 102 people, of which 50 survived after the first Beyond Spring. So to have such large numbers descending from one person, then you have the Great Migration Killers. So they came over, 20,000 people came over. That's a lot of ancestors to only have a handful of them with large numbers of serial killers that descend from them.
Laura, you've had your genetic tree done before, DNA tree done before. Tell us a little bit about that experience, because we also had Cindy look into it. So I'm curious to see what the difference is between the two.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what you found in mine. So I had forensic genealogists do my tree, and I didn't think I had ancestors from the Mayflower, but I actually have ancestors from Salem, Massachusetts during the witch trials. And then I found out I'm very closely related to Lizzie Borden. And then I found out I'm 10th cousins with Roy Norris.
Oh, really? I haven't found Norris yet, but what I did find is you're related to Eileen Wuornos 4 times.
Wow.
And you have, I sent you the text. So the other
let's talk about this, because I don't know how many people know who Eileen Wuornos is. Could you tell us a little bit about her?
Me? I don't follow serial killers, but Eileen Wuornos.
Laura, that's what I meant, Laura.
She's a female serial killer she was a prostitute picking at men, killing them, robbing them down in Florida.
Wasn't she going up and down the coast? Because we did a development thing with the Lady of the Lake in Massachusetts, and they thought she might have been part of that. But I thought she was going up and down the East Coast, Eileen Wuornos, and she ended up in Florida. And then she was killing a bunch of people in Florida, like men.
Yeah. She might have. I know she was hopping in like trucker trucks with them. I think she was going state to state.
She's unique because it's not very often that you do find a woman serial killer.
No, it's very rare.
Yeah, and for people who don't know, that's the movie what's her name? Yeah.
Charlize Theron did a movie called Monster based on Eileen Wuornos' life, which is just tragic. I mean, she was sexually abused, and then she became this killer. And you wonder if the sexual abuse is what triggered it, or if this is a DNA thing. And in her line, Eileen Wuornos, who's the connection to the Mayflower?
Eileen is not connected to the Mayflower. She does not have a Mayflower connection. With her tree, what I find is it's very evident that she was a victim. And so though she had it in her to kill, and she is related to the other serial killers, but her tree reads a little bit differently. And it's something there's more like it's in her, but it was provoked type of a, response. So she went cuckoo. She went berserk, and she killed a lot of people, but she was already sexually abused. She's also related to Lizzie Borden, and like heavily related to Lizzie Borden, who I believe also was a victim of sexual assault by her father. And I think that's what promoted the whole.
Well, that's interesting. Laura, you're related to Lizzie Borden and to Eileen Wuornos.
Yeah, I know. Crazy.
Wow.
And then Laura is also related to Paul Bernardo, Keith Jesperson, Brian Koberger, and Joseph James D'Angelo. That's the other people you're related to.
And Brian Koberger is the Idaho murders.
Those are other people you're related to. It's
Brian
a big
Koberger. Brian Koberger is the serial killer that just killed the kids in Idaho.
Yeah.
Moscow.
What is her relation to how many cousins removed is she from him?
I don't know. I didn't grab that information. I just grabbed the ancestor that they share.
Hey, Laura, you should reach out to him.
I should. Yeah, I've talked to Jesperson before.
Oh,
yeah, that's wild.
He just came out with his alibi today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, saying that he said that night he was just out driving around, looking at the moon and the sky and the stars. He was just moon gazing, and he said that he didn't have a cell phone or something like that. That's why they couldn't track him. So sounds like a solid alibi.
No.
Find yourself driving around.
All right, so let's just clarify. Laura is connected to Eileen Wuornos, Lizzie Borden.
I don't know about Lizzie Borden yet. Probably, I haven't found it.
She
yet.
had it done through the forensic.
This morning, so.
Yeah. Okay. Just based on Cindy's stuff, Eileen Wuornos, Brian Koberger,
Paul Bernardo,
and who is Paul Bernardo for people that don't know?
Serial killer. Him and his wife, they were nasty.
Laura, do you know anything about Paul Bernardo?
A little bit. He had the shoe fetish, and he grew up with a really abusive childhood, and killed women. I think it was in the Midwest where his case was.
Paul Bernardo is Canadian, so he's from Ontario. It's the Ken and Barbie killers. So it happened in the 80s.
Oh, it's that guy?
That guy.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Cousins. And
wow.
Hey, Laura, how does this make you feel to learn? How does it make you feel to learn this about yourself?
It's
knowing what
crazy.
you're doing.
Yeah, it's crazy because look at what I do. And then I find out, wow.
Yeah.
Out of all those serial killers, who am I the closest related to out of the men?
I didn't look. It's the ancestor that came over, so it's going to depend on who was older, but still working on it. But it's probably in the 8th, 9th cousin region for those people. But you're related heavily to Eileen Wuornos, which is, to me, the most interesting. We'll talk off screen. I have a question for you. So I noticed, like I say, I noticed patterns. And you are likely related to Lizzie Borden as well. Oh, you said you were, right?
Yeah, when they did it, they said I'm related to her, like 7th cousin, like very close. Mm-hmm. And then I also have lines through her bio dad, bio mom, and stepmother, like the whole family. Yeah.
So you have the Morse line, because if you got the Morse line, I got a bunch of killers for you.
Oh my God.
Morse line's pretty heavy. So and it makes sense. Like I think your tree has that recent Europe connection. Probably have the Germany. I'd have to pull it up, but it makes sense that you would be attracted to serial killers in trying to dissect and what's going on with that. You know what I mean? And the fact that they feel familiar with you, that they're comfortable talking to you, also makes sense because you're kin.
Wow, that's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like on a chemical level that you're connected to them.
It's like a genetic, DNA is attracted to DNA, but genetic memory, generational trauma, maybe that's where, how certain people you feel comfortable with, and you're like, I don't know why I'm comfortable with this person. You said that about BITTAKER too, which I always was like, how do you feel comfortable with this guy? He's so scary.
It's likely related. I haven't found it yet.
I mean, to do the work that she does, she has to get up close and personal with a lot of these serial killers. Terrifying, it's like I'm always scared every time she goes into the cage. But
it's so strange too, because they all say to me, they're like, I look at you like family. And now I learned this. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's bizarre.
And then the more you know, next time you go see one, you can just be like, well, we're cousins. We're related,
Wow.
I mean, it does help them open up a little bit more so she can get the information that she needs.
Yeah. I want to talk to the Golden State Killer, so now I have a reason to do so.
Well, he's my cousin. I need to talk to him.
Where is he right now? Is he?
He's in California. I don't know what prison.
Okay.
So when you hear about all these killers that are in the family tree of serial killers that it's sent, hundreds and hundreds of years going back, how does that feel, Laura?
I'm just mind blown because I never knew about my German roots. I always just thought, because on my grandmother's side, her mother came over from Italy, and I was raised with like the Italian traditions and cultures. So I never knew anything about my dad's side, and he doesn't either. So I find out it goes like that line goes way back in my grandfather's, and I'm like, oh my God, I just had no idea. It goes back to, the 1600s in Massachusetts. And I wanted to ask that Morris line, because I'm pretty sure I remember that name too. What killers are in that line?
Let me type in the Morse line. But it was your mom. Yeah, your mom's grandma came over from Italy, and then the one line there goes to like England, and yeah, you have German. Hang on, let me just type that in. The Morse line is, well, it's H. Holmes, Israel Keyes, Paul Bernardo, Richard Chase. He's the vampire killer in California.
Yeah.
Ted Bundy's on the Morse line. Lizzie Borden's on the Morse line. Of course, we know that.
Seeking the truth never gets old. Introducing June's Journey, the free-to-play mobile game that will immerse you in a thrilling murder mystery. Join June Parker as she uncovers hidden objects and clues to solve her sister's death in a beautifully illustrated world set in the Roaring '20s. With new chapters added every week, the excitement never ends. Download June's Journey now on your Android or iOS device, or play on PC through Facebook Games.
Yeah, that's who's on the Morse line. Let me see if there's more. If you're related to Lizzie on her mom's side and the dad's side, if you're related to Lizzie Borden on her mom's side, that's the Morse side. So if your connection is like, let's say, on that Morse line, then I'll have to look to see what you have. But if you are on the Morse line, that's who you have.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So you're related to Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. But yeah, those are the killers on the Morse line.
Wow.
It's interesting. I mean, the work that you do is so unique.
I know.
I mean,
yeah, it is.
You just wouldn't. That's always what's fascinating me about Laura. Like, here she is studying forensic psychology and criminology in Boston, and she just decides to get on a plane to go see one of the most notorious, horrifying, sadistic serial killers in the world, and just walks right in there like no big deal.
And then he starts telling her everything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
you
very
feel comfortable with family in that. Makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you really wonder if there is something that we can like sense each other, kinship, like you were saying.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense why you're comfortable. It also makes sense why you're wanting to learn about and uncover and help and talk to and whatever. I don't know what you do, but that would make sense too. Because you want to help family but family, right?
Right.
That's a whole other story.
Well, what Laura does is she goes into the cage with the serial killers and she's interviewing them, and she gets information about missing victims to recover them.
And I've only got, as far as deep roots, I've got Cindy Schaefer in the tree, and I haven't yet to make a connection, but I'm working on your tree as well at the moment. So you might be related to the victims as well. So there might be a tie there.
There was, because they did a couple of the victims of BITTAKER and NORRIS's when they did my line, and they said Cindy, the first victim, which is funny because BITTAKER and NORRIS always said I reminded them of Cindy. We're connected by the Putnam line that goes back to Salem, Massachusetts.
You got Putnam?
Yeah. Oh no.
You just triggered Cindy.
What's the Putnam line?
I'll have to see. I know of the Putnam line. You're also related to a 6-time Olympic gold medalist if you've got Putnam. So I'd have to dig into the tree further to see. But yeah, I'm aware of the Putnam line. So, but that also generally ties into the Morse line. So
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for people who don't know the Putnam line or the Putnams, it was the 13-year-old girl who started the Salem witch trials. And so the Putnams were basically, essentially, the cause of the Salem witch trials.
They were the accusers. They were their sheriffs. They were standing in the court and accusing everyone.
Yeah.
It is fascinating. I mean, when you start doing your genealogy tree, when we went back and I found out that great grandparents, do very similar work to what I do and to what my dad has done. And, they're all the same, writers, artists. It's crazy. And it goes all the way back to like 1100.
Yeah.
So you wonder the DNA, generational trauma, the DNA connection, the genetic memory, as we're trying to understand ourselves. It's quite interesting.
Gifts can be passed down as well. So it's not just the negative stuff. The good stuff comes down too. So like artists, writers, things like doctors, those are also, to give you an example, Lawrence Washington, that's George Washington's grandfather. If you were to look on famouskin.com, that line breeds success. It's like the treasure trove of celebrity relations. So many like celebrities, notable people descend from Lawrence, Washington. So I guarantee that that is a success line. Also, that 6-time Olympic gold medalist I was talking about that you're related to, she's on that line as well. And those people, they just have it in them. They're just go-getters. They're just different work ethic, right? And you have these serial killer lines who, and I've had a lot of comments from people saying, my ex was a Fuller. This makes sense. Like a lot of people, you know what I mean? So certain bloodlines have certain things, be it good stuff or bad.
Right.
Wow.
We don't want to cluster like all the people with that last name as being
Not at all. And I mean,
right. So we just want to clarify that like just because your last name may be a Fuller or Putnam doesn't mean that you're connected to this tree.
No. Right. And also, even if you were, it doesn't matter because generational curses can be broken. So.
Yeah, and you have the choice of free will. So it's like everyone's background is raised differently. It's just if you have those components from the get-go, if you're raised a certain way, if you were abused as a kid, if you're sexually abused, if you had a horrible upbringing, like 99% of these serial killers do have horrible upbringings. Yeah. It just basically metastasizes and just flourishes in those types of people who have that generational trauma that gets triggered when they were young.
Right.
We just recently spoke to the sister-in-law of Bill Suff, William Suff, who was the Riverside prostitute killer and the Lake Elsinore killer. Many might remember him as the
Lake Elsinore
killer who mutilated his victims, put them into a pot of chili, and then that chili won the Riverside County chili cook-off.
Just sick.
Anyway, I had Cindy look into that tree to see if he was connected to any of the other cannibal killers. And what did you find?
He's related to Jeffrey Dahmer. I found that right away. That was like the first one that I found. So I know I had sent you. He's related to Joseph James D'Angelo, Jesse James, whatever he happens to be in the tree, and Jeffrey Dahmer, as well as Holly Crippen, who is my opinion, the other half of the Jack the Ripper.
It's crazy.
Laura, what do you think of that?
Crazy. It's really crazy to have two cannibalists in the same like bloodline. It's just so crazy. You got to wonder if there is a genetic component. Like,
wait, let her finish. What?
No, it's just crazy. You really got to wonder if there is a genetic component playing in more than we, initially thought. I mean, two cannibals in the same bloodline. That's insane.
Well, as well as Richard Chase is also related to Jeffrey Dahmer. So that's also a cannibal. Yeah. So they've got a connection as well.
Wow.
And those two are related to Dean Coral as well. I think there's a little something there. And also Brian Koberger's on that one family line too. So it's interesting.
Crazy.
I think it's crazy. I mean, I don't even know how you would.
Well, I think what's unique about Koberger is the fact that he leaned into, I guess, that genetic DNA thing because he went in to become a criminologist, studied serial killers, was fascinated with BTK, Dennis Rader, actually exchanged letters with him. He was fascinated with him. So it's almost like it's almost like he's trying to learn from those people. It's just like you can't take away that there's an attraction there. Yeah. And it's probably the same thing, independent of what you went through when you were younger with your best friend and your cousin.
That
could have been the trigger. That's your trigger point to kind of take you in that direction. But you're very comfortable there. I've been in the cage with you with these guys, and you're unusually comfortable sitting across like 2 feet away from them and just talking to them and opening up and sharing with them. And they immediately open up to you and share with you. I mean, I've interviewed a lot of killers, a lot of them. I interviewed Charles Manson, a lot of other killers, and I'm never that comfortable. I'm just thinking, I'm trying to get them to talk, but it's like, I never felt comfortable. You definitely feel at ease in there. And it's obvious that there's some component there that you're born with that allows you and helps you do what you do.
Yeah. I actually had to put a lot of disclaimers in my book because, I use a lot of like dark humor when I'm on death row or with the offenders and stuff. And I'll call them just serial killer. And I put in the book, don't ever do this. If you ever talk to a serial killer going to a prison, don't ever do what I do. They're just so comfortable with me. They respond well to it. But if anybody else were to do it, they would flip out.
Right. That's what I was trying to say. Like the things that Laura does to extract information from them, if anyone else had gone in there to do these things, they probably wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Or they would have been shut down by them.
Either they would have been shut down or they would have been hurt, because she really knows how to poke at them, but also keep them in line. It's almost like they have this
family
respect for her, as if like they know her. It is very strange, but maybe it's because of this genetic tree. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, and recently my mother found some homicide detectives on my grandfather's side that we never even knew about. And she showed it to me. She's like, "Oh my God, look." She was like, because she didn't even know there was homicide detectives in our family, because she always wondered where it came from within me. And then she found a long line of homicide detectives, and now I'm learning serial killers.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That would be why you do that. I found in my brother's tree. He's my half brother, but his cousin is a courier. He owns a courier company. They descend from Canada's first courier that was Portuguese. My people are French. This was one Portuguese guy that came over. He was Canada's first courier. There are stamps made of this guy, and so his cousin being owning a courier company, descending from Canada's first courier, is a little bit crazy.
Well, yeah, it's insane. I mean, we looked at my great-grandfather when I found his papers and when I worked at studios in the archive, and I was like, he does all things: writer, producer, director, publicist, like all this stuff. And this is back in the 20s, and it's like, look, my dad's in this business, I'm in this business. It's crazy. You're
related to people in the business.
Yeah,
related to people in the business on my mother's side, so it's like everything's attracts to each other. It's very fascinating. But the serial killer trees for Laura. So Eileen Wuornos, they're not from the Mayflower line. What line are they from?
We're talking what Eileen Wuornos? Multiple lines. You're asking which ancestors they share? Oh,
yeah. I mean, just like is it Virginia or is it Massachusetts? Because I know there's like different components.
Connecticut, I think. It is. I think it goes back to England, but hang on, I have to type this in. My typos all over the place. So, there's a Edmund Lockwood that you're related to. That's 1574, so that's going to go back to England. His line ended up in Massachusetts, so that's a Massachusetts connection. Nicholas Knapp, that line ends up in Connecticut, from England to Connecticut. And Stephen Clausen ends up in Connecticut. So Massachusetts and Connecticut.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And there's not generally
Laura,
a lot of
with this, I'm sorry, we're saying, Cindy?
It's fine, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So what I was going to say, Laura, how can you use this information to your advantage now, going into talking to...
I'm going to mention it. It could be a way, to get them to even open up more, or really find out, more about our bloodline. I think they're going to find it fascinating too. Mm-hmm. And you got to wonder, is this why they're opening up to me? The kinship there. And I wanted to ask you, because Lawrence Bittaker, when I did his, there was only one line of Bittaker found in the U.S. And I wanted to see what you found with his line.
Well, I can tell you he's related to a lot of serial killers. He's related to 11 and Roy Norris. Actually, Larry Bittaker is also related to Eileen Wuornos. Funny thing.
And
what was that?
Angelo. He's also, the list that you gave me, Larry Bittaker, through the Thomas Gardner line. Joseph D'Angelo.
Originally, I know they're not all Thomas Gardner. When I had started writing it, I didn't erase that part. I think the first 7 are under the Thomas Gardner line. And I found an Eileen Wuornos connection with him after I sent you that. So Larry Bittaker is related to Joseph James D'Angelo, Otis Toole, Lauren Douglas Thomas, Albert Fish, Michael Bear Carson, that's the San Francisco witch killer, David Carpenter, John Wayne Gacy, Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, Edmund Kemper, and Eileen Wuornos. So that's who Larry Bittaker is related to.
Stephen Avery.
Wow.
If everybody remembers who he is, he's from the Making of a Murderer documentary.
Oh, yeah. What's even crazier is Carpenter and Bittaker, their cells were pretty close to each other. When they were both on San Quentin State Row. Yeah.
It's funny, they're related.
Are you surprised to hear that Carpenter and Bittaker are related?
Very. Yeah. It was actually Bittaker who introduced me to Carpenter.
Really? See, they had that kinship already. How some people repel each other and some people are attracted to each other, that would be what it is.
Serial killers for him to be related to. That's a lot of serial killers for Bittaker to be related to.
Right.
Yeah.
And then like Roy Norris.
All of those. Wait, before we go to Norris. So the Bittaker line, is that coming from the Mayflower line or?
So from the Mayflower connection, Bittaker is related to John Wayne Gacy, Stephen Avery, and Brendan Dassey. That's on the Thomas Rogers line of the Mayflower.
Gonna have to figure out some flow charts here.
I know we have to put up
lots of killers.
But Norris, how many killers was he related to?
Roy Norris. He's related to 12. He's also related to David Carpenter, John Wayne Gacy, Israel Keyes, Randy Kraft, Dennis Rader, Lizzie Borden, Robert Rhodes, Stephen Avery again, Brendan Dassey, William Bradford Bishop, Ted Bundy, and Earl Nelson. It's actually 13 because Brendan Dassey is the nephew of Stephen Avery. So I just don't think I wrote it on Roy Norris's list. And then his Mayflower connection is on the Winslow line, to which he's related to Lizzie Borden.
Wow.
All right. So real quick. So if Bittaker, you just found out that he's related to Eileen Wuornos, correct?
So
did I hear
you guys are, my screen, everybody's like twirling. Do you guys see me? Because I can't see. Okay, you're back. Are you guys not having glitches on your end?
Okay.
There's a little glitch on mine.
No glitches.
Yeah.
No glitch. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Well,
what was the question? Sorry.
The question is, you said that Bittaker, you just recently found that he's related to Eileen Wuornos. Is that correct?
He is also, yeah.
Okay. So wouldn't that make
on the day before yesterday
him related? Wouldn't that make him related to Laura as
No,
well?
it's a different ancestor. He's related.
Oh,
It's a big list I'd have to dig through, but it's not. I'm looking for the connections. When I find it, I merge the ancestor and I write the notes. But I've not yet connected her to Bittaker or Norris. I'm still working on that.
That's so fascinating. I wonder if it's Lizzie Borden is the connection to Norris, because they had done Lizzie Borden and then they came back and told me there's a relation to Norris.
Yeah, because I haven't gotten to your Putnam line. I haven't gotten to your Salem witch stuff. So that's possible.
Oh.
It would make sense. I mean, that's where you started this whole journey.
Yeah.
Are you surprised to hear killers Bittaker and Norris are related to? I mean, we're talking like, these aren't like small serial killers. Ted Bundy, BTK, David Carpenter, John Wayne Gacy,
Ed Kemper.
I mean, these are.
Yeah. No, these are H.H. Holmes, Albert Fish, all of them. I mean, I know all of these cases. I mean, they're vicious, horrific cases. Every single one of them is very prolific.
Cindy, I have a question for you. Has David Berkowitz come up in any of those lines?
Yeah. I don't remember if he's adopted or he's in the tree, but hang on. Is that David Berkowitz's son of Sam?
Yeah.
He was adopted and he's got Italy and Russia, I think. Second, third generation American. He doesn't have deep roots at all.
Okay. So there's some outliers out of this as well, because to me these lists are just it's like the best of the, for lack of a better term, the all-stars of serial killers that we know of in America.
Yeah.
Which I find bizarre.
What was that?
Say?
I was just saying. Go ahead.
I think it's interesting that the major serial killers in the United States are all connected, except for Son of Sam. I mean, that to me is bizarre. And the fact that England does not have the plethora of serial killers that we do. Granted, we are a much bigger country, but I've talked to a lot of people over there. They don't really have a lot of serial killings there. When I lived there, I did a lot of research about this, and there's maybe a handful. Not like here, where there's like dozens and dozens.
Yeah, we doubled the world with the number of serial killers.
They've all got an English, they've got that British connection. So the reason is because they sent them away. So that's why they don't have serial killers. That's why they're here. And the ones that they do have were probably from here anyway, like, Jack the Ripper being H.H. Holmes / Holly Crippen. So that's what it is. So whoever was there left and came over here and left their seed.
Maybe some of them might have gone back to the UK or whatnot. I know that.
I think that's right.
Have you gone through
DNA testing and genetic testing? What?
Go ahead, Laura.
Oh, there was a lag. Sorry. Have you gone through the victims to see if there's any relation to the victims to the killer?
I have. So I've done. Larry Bittaker is related to Cindy Schaefer. They
Oh my
share
God.
Dayton. This is a royal line that leads to Edward the First. So the ancestor is Jane Dayton and her husband, but she's got the royal line. She's
Oh, you're frozen.
yeah. Everybody's blinking.
Okay. Just finish what you just said because you froze up a little bit, and she's frozen again.
Okay, are we back?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we
Yep.
back? Okay. So yeah, Larry Bittaker and Cindy Schaefer are related to Jane Dayton, DEIGHTON, and that is a royal line. So, and nobody else has that person in their tree, and the tree's got over 70 people in it. So, how everybody says, oh well, we're all related, blah blah blah. We're not all related to the same people. It's a unique mix that it took to make you, and it's interesting that that's the connection that he has. So, and you know, and I'm actually looking in your tree to see if I can find that ancestor, which would explain why they felt like you remind them of her. And if I find that, you know what I mean? Like that's going to speak volumes.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yeah.
Well, that's the fact that he's related to one of his victims. Laura, what do you think about that?
It's crazy. I had no idea any of the girls, because when they first did it, they told me they ran the victims' names, but never got back to me if there was any cross relation to, Bittaker or Norris. So it's just crazy. Did you also run Andrea Hall, Jackie Gilliam, Leah Lamb, Lynette Ledford? Is there any other cross relation?
Andrea, I can only, so far I've gotten only her dad's side. It's Virginia. I haven't, that means it's like, it's all the way down. It takes a long time to do those trees. Killer trees are quick because they have that recent Europe. So basically I'm half a tree, I'm done. The other girl, who was it? Who was the other girl?
Jackie Gilliam, Leah Lamb.
Who was the other girl? No, you told me the
Oh,
other day.
Lynette Ledford.
That's the one. I can't get past her grandparents. She had a grandfather that was from England. There's really not much I can stretch. I need DNA in order to go further sometimes. So, but I know that Cindy Schaefer is connected. And Andrea might be. I got to dig further on the father's side because Roy Norris has Virginia. Larry Bittaker doesn't have a southern connection.
Well, what's interesting about Cindy is that Bittaker gave Laura the location of Cindy.
Really?
He never revealed that to anyone before.
Cindy and Andrea. Yeah.
Really? Did you find it?
We haven't done a search yet. I've taken a metal detector up to this spot and I did like a whole mile-long sweep and I only got a hit on the spot he told me though.
Really?
Yeah, and the reason for that is because he put a metal spike in her hip.
Yeah, he left the ice pick in the bone. Yeah.
No. Oh, jeez.
So awful. Poor thing. Such a pretty girl.
Yeah.
She was beautiful.
It would
They all
be,
were. It's just terrible.
They all were. They really were. It's just I'm thinking, it would be so crazy if there is a cross relation with Cindy and Andrea, with Bittaker and Norris, and then myself, because those are the victims he gave up to me. And I'm just thinking those are the two victims that could possibly be related.
Right. I'd like to get information on Andrea's. You need her. I think I've got her mom. I'm guessing at the maiden name. I need those parents. I need her grandparents on her mom's side in order to stretch her tree further, or I need DNA.
I can get those for you.
Laura, you still talk to her mom, right?
Her mom just passed away, but I talked to her siblings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, this has been fascinating. Laura, what do you think of all this?
I'm just mind blown. Like I didn't expect, I thought maybe one or two serial killers might show up, just going back, to the 1600s. I didn't expect like a list of like 20.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a question for you. Does Shermantine show up in any of this stuff?
Does who?
Wesley Shermantine.
Shermantine? What? I don't know what
Wesley
Shermantine.
The speed freak. Yeah, speed. Him
Speed
and another
freak
guy.
killer.
Speed freak killers up in Northern
I don't
California.
have him in the tree. I can add him. Leslie?
Yeah, add him. His name is Wesley Shermantine.
Wesley.
We should also do Lake.
Leonard Lake.
Yeah, Lake.
Leonard Lake's in the tree. Wesley.
Blake.
How do you suppose last name? Wesley Blake.
I'll send it to you. I'll text it to you.
Okay.
No. Wesley Shermantine.
Leonard Lake is in the tree. I believe he's got southern roots. So let me see. Leonard Lake. L for Lake. Southern roots. So he's a southern roots killer. So he's got Virginia. And it's interesting. There's a lot less connections in Virginia, but those actually take longer because most of them came out of the Virginia colony, probably Jamestown, which was established before the Mayflower came over. So
Yeah, and just for listeners and viewers, there is some science behind this because they have done brain mapping of serial killers, and brain mapping does transcend your DNA and your genealogy. I mean, it just definitely they've done it to where serial killers from past, present have been, their brain mapping has lined up and has been similar.
Yeah.
It's all. I mean, everything they say is like all this is all connected, and it's like you can't run from your DNA, you can't run from your genealogy. It's like it's who we are. It's just, you can't run from your blood.
Right.
You know,
That's
If
good
we
to
can
know.
understand it, if we can understand it a little bit more, I think it could help in prevention. Like
Right.
a child that's being sexually abused, and you know that this child might have a proclivity for this type of DNA. If we could get that child the help that they need at a young age, instead of just turning a blind eye, then maybe that child has a chance at a normal life instead of going down this dark path.
yeah, it's something right out of Minority Report. When you think about it, you really nail down all of this on a scientific level, and with the advent of AI right now, I mean, I can see how they can kind of pre-crime people, based on DNA and their genealogy.
That could be dangerous, though. I
mean, but at least you can basically tell someone if they have the propensity and the DNA and the genealogy map that you can prevent them from becoming a serial killer, and you can get them the necessary resources to make sure they don't do those things. But most of these things are all left unchecked most of the time. These serial killers are in when they're younger, and they're all this abuse and horrible trauma. It's very rare where they come out. Like we talked about Clark. He came from a pretty, well-off background, but we don't know, what triggered him. But most of them have this strange, tragic background that kind of cements in their brain when they're younger, and then when they get up and they grow older, they have that capacity to kill. All right.
Yeah.
So this has been fascinating. I think we're probably going to do more of these. So just want to, because I think we're going to learn more, and I'm sure Lori, you're going to learn more, and Cindy, I mean,
I'm not done with it yet, so there's more to learn.
Cindy, I was wondering, did you do Douglas Clark's line?
Yeah, he's in the tree too. He's related to, I don't have, I think he's a Mayflower. Let me see. Yeah, Douglas Clark's on the Hopkins line, and let's see. I think he's got more than one. He's also related to a number of serial killers. He's related to Israel Keyes, Joseph James D'Angelo. He's on the Dottie line. He's also related to John Wayne Gacy, David Hendricks. And that's just his Mayflower connection. So he's related to a lot of killers. I'd have to look it up.
Wow.
But I was going to say abusers are also, that passes down too. So that's a genetic, you know what I mean? It passes down from generation unless you break the curse. So then there's that freedom of choice. So you do inherit the bad stuff, but you also inherit the good stuff. So.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's a great place to end it. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
So we meet again.
Don't hang up.
Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and check out extra content from all of our podcasts. All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content.